Okay, so this is a VoiceWise report example focusing on the nutrition pillar. And the case study that we're working on right now is a female in her 50s who came to us with menopause, hot flashes, trouble sleeping, and pre-diagnosed thyroid issues. So that information was given to us before she ever did her voice report. So now we're going to go into her voice report. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe a little much. There we go.
So when you look at your voice report, every voice report has this executive summary on it. That never changes. That's just reminding you that we're running over 1,100 different data points to identify all of the things that are coming up. Then on the summary of results, the things that are highlighted in yellow are dynamic items that will change depending on the results of your report. So the first item will always list the first pillar of health that comes up. And for this person, it's nutrition. Then it'll always list a correlation, which means that there's an organ or an area being affected by that pillar of health. And for this individual, it came up as the thyroid gland. Then this
go ahead.
Second item is always going to be the system that we want to support the most. And then we also look at what is the secondary system we want to support the most. So if you were to do nothing else, you would want to address your pillar of health, your first system, and your second system. And we'll show you where the resources are for all of those.
Yeah. Yep. And there's 5 different pillars.
Yes.
So where it says nutrition on the first line item for summary of results, that could be 4 different options besides the one that is shown here. The correlation to that organ, there's a lot of different organs and moving parts per pillar.
Yeah.
So that is kind of endless of what could show up there. The systems, there's 10 different systems. Mm-hmm. So this is showing the top 2 that we want to really address and start supporting. And then the last static thing, meaning thing that is going to show up every time, is the pH environment.
Yes.
So that pH environment is always going to be shown because we find that extremely important, right? pH of the body is extremely important, right? If you're in an acidic environment, that's what creates a disease state. Mm-hmm. So then the other things that are dynamic that can change is it's going to also give you a hint of where things are coming from. Is it coming from the physical side or the emotional side? So not only are you going to get a sense of what system that you're looking at, what pillar you're looking for, but it's also going to show you what specifically, right? Is it going to be on the physical or emotional side? And emotional is broken down, and so is physical, which we'll show you in the key on the next page.
Here's the key.
So everything is broken out into percentages, right? We wanted to make it easy, right? 0 is not good, as you can see by the picture. 100% is great. Pretty much in this case, it's 50% or more is passing.
Yep. So you really only need to consider supporting the items that are below 50%. So we always want to look for the lowest percentage first. Then for emotional and physical factors, there are 4 different types or variations of emotional influence and physical influence that are measured. On the emotional side, it's intellectual. So that would be like thoughts that you would have, things that you think over and over again. Emotional, how your emotional response is to something. Behavioral, that's usually habits that you end up creating over time. And spiritual is just more of something greater. Sometimes that if we don't have a connection to something greater than ourselves, if we don't have strong spiritual faith, then that can actually play a role in the emotions that affect our body.
And the reason why we're showing these breakdowns on the emotional physical factors is for you to be able to check in with yourself, right? Mm-hmm. These are the different aspects of how we built this report. However, we can actually, in the back end data, we can actually see all this information and see what it's actually affecting whenever we're doing appointments one-on-one with someone. However, for your purpose, you won't be able to see that. And we did it that way intentionally so that you can really check in with yourself and find out where it's at for you, right? Because this is a self-healing tool, right? If you're not doing appointments with us and you're just doing these reports, that's a great way, right? You don't have to be a patient of ours. We want to teach you how to do it to the best of your ability with the information that you have provided on this report.
And then physical, molecular is related to the cells. Biomaterial is more the surrounding tissue and fluids. Organ is the organ itself. And systemic means how that organ plays or cooperates and functions in conjunction with other systems in the body.
Now, again, this is going to be a lot of information, but when physical comes up, you're just going to want to support it in a way on a physical stance, right? So this would be diet, exercise, light therapy, Avicin, all these different things on a physical sense to support the organ or the system itself and all the moving parts.
And we have resources that can point you to what that might look like.
Yes.
So then you're also going to see if something is acute or chronic. Now, in the terms of this test, chronic holds more weight. So it will come up more often, but that also, we did that on purpose because things that are chronic or more long-term or ongoing often need more ongoing support. Whereas something that's acute is usually something that's come up more recently, or it's just got some inflammation. It's usually something a little bit easier to address. Really?
Most of the time, it's usually short term,
Yeah,
right?
short term.
Right, that it happened more recently, but you can also have, highly acute things that are pretty heavy duty if, for example, right, that you've been exposed to something very recently, right? So an acute thing could be as serious as chronic, but most likely you'll know how serious it is because you've been exposed to something, right? Chemicals, toxicity.
So if it says acute, think back for the last month or so and ask yourself, okay, has anything happened that's been
even
different?
Up to a year?
Or,
I mean, I would say even up to a
year.
year would be a good thing to look at on this.
So all of you will have 5 pillars of health.
And this is on page 3.
This is page 3. Yep. And at the top, it'll say which one you need to support the most and what it's impacting. So when we ran her voice analysis, so again, it's measuring oxygen, hydration, mouth, nutrition, and emotions. Whichever one of yours is red, that's the one that needs the most support. And when we look at the percentages, it's grabbing the lowest percentage here as the one that's highlighted in red. But really, any of these that are below 50%, we want to support at some point. And
oh, good. And again, we highlighted these parts in yellow to show that these are dynamic parts. These will change depending on what's going on in that specific pillar.
Yeah.
And as you can see, right, another thing you want to notice that you want to draw your own attention to, right, that you want to look into maybe a little further is when you see that the same organ comes up more than once. Right. As you can see on this report, thyroid gland comes up twice.
In nutrition and in oxygenation, and they're both below 50%. So the fact that she was already diagnosed with thyroid issues before she ever came and saw me makes a lot of sense. And then once we did her voice report, we said, oh, okay, part of why the thyroid isn't functioning the way that gland is supposed to function is because it needs nutritional support and it needs more oxygen. Now, there are many ways that you can get nutrition and oxygen to the thyroid gland, and we're going to talk about that. So the first thing you'll notice is anytime your pillar comes up, you immediately get 2 action steps. These are 2 really simple, basic things that you can start doing immediately that usually don't require you to have to get anything, buy anything. These are very basic. I can just do some breathing. I can do some mindful eating.
So most of the time, here's the crazy part, right, about this. You might think that this is not that of a big deal, right? What we're sharing, meaning slow down your chewing. You should be chewing, and this is a challenge. And I would challenge you with this. It's kind of crazy. I've tried doing it, and it's extremely difficult. Chew 30 times before swallowing. Each bite. It's extremely difficult. But slowing down your chewing, right? These chompers are your first line of defense of digestion. The more that you can do it here, the less your stomach has to do it. The less your stomach has to work, the more it can use its time and energy for absorbing, for getting the nutrients to the right place. Like, we don't realize, but we're in such a hurry all the time of eating on the go and getting the food down as quickly as possible. Over in Europe, I remember going over there, and it was just nuts to me because they would spend like 5 hours eating. it was the craziest thing. I had to slow down. I mean, a lot. So we don't realize that even just slowly chewing your food will make a big difference, and including also not drinking any water or any liquid with your meal can make a gigantic difference. And we see that a lot with bloating. People that are that have bloating problems, we always ask them if they drink any water while they're eating,
And if they're a fast eater. And so many of us these days are what I would call distracted diners, where we're eating while we're doing something else. And so we miss focusing on the food enough to savor the texture and the flavor and just the smells and the changes in the food as we chew them down and break them down. And it's that mindfulness, that attention focused on our food that helps send those brain signals to the brain to tell us, oh, I'm getting the nutrients I need and I'm full now.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that it does is if you slow down your eating, then you won't overeat, right? You're going to give your body time enough to catch up so that it can say, I think I'm good now, you know, and we don't realize it. And we I would say 80% or more overeat. Yeah. And then, right, hold on. So right, the second thing, right, counting chemicals. I mean, pay attention to that. Pay attention to what's in your food, right? Even something as simple as eating less processed food. And processed means anything besides the ingredient itself, right? So if you go buy orange juice and it has something other than orange juice in it, right? Then don't drink it.
Yeah. And think of, can I walk outside and could I get it from the ground? A potato is a food. A potato chip is not a food.
Pizza is not a food technically, right? I mean, yes, you put different food items on there, but that's most of the time it's processed.
Right.
Now, if you're making your own pizza and putting your own ingredients on it, hey, look, I'll come to your house.
Yeah.
But
invite us for dinner.
Yeah. But you know, so just paying attention to that, just making simple changes.
Yeah. Okay. So then page 4 is our Masters of Function page. And these are going to be the top 2 systems that need the most support. And the one factor that if you just address this one factor, you're going to be able to support multiple systems at once. So this is kind of like your next step cheat sheet for what you need to focus on. And if I was like, I don't really want to go into supporting all the systems, then just support the most impactful factor. Support your pillar and then your most impactful factor. If you even just do those 2 things, you will be making positive changes in your body and your health. And so there will be a learning resource under this factor that, again, this is dynamic, this changes, it's highlighted. So if you click on this learning resource, it will take you to a video that will help give you immediate action steps.
Yeah, and you can, you know, look at ways to support your liver, right? And just Google, right? We have so much information at our fingertips, so much.
So just kind of off the cuff, if liver were to come up for you, things that can help the liver are eating cooked foods instead of raw foods, making sure you're drinking enough warm to hot water, doing castor oil packs over the liver, and you can Google castor oil pack recipes. It's been used in Egypt for like 4,000 years. I've used it post-surgically personally, and it has done wonders for my healing. The castor oil packs have. Beeler's broth is another recipe that's really great for feeding nutrition to the liver. You can also do infrared light therapy pad over the liver. And for anyone who's curious, your liver sits, if you're putting something on topically, you want to take your fingers and walk them down the front of your ribs until you hit that spot just below your ribs. Your liver is right up under there, kind of sitting at a diagonal. So that's the area of the body that you would put the castor oil on or the infrared light therapy on.
And the liver does over 1,000 different functions. The liver is extremely important, and it connects easily to all the things that we have found so far on this report, right? Which is the thyroid, hormones, immune system. The liver is huge on the immune system, but also it helps clear up the bloodstream of hormones after they've been used, right? So once the hormone's been used, it goes into the bloodstream, and then it's supposed to be cleared by the liver. If that liver is not supported and not able to do that, then you start to have hypothyroidism, right? Hyperthyroidism, And that also deals with, again, nutrition and appetite, right?
Yeah.
If it's hyperthyroidism, you're going to be dealing with an overexertion of appetite, and you're going to overeat. If you're dealing with hypo, right, then it's underperforming, and then you might not eat as much, and you're going to go into malnutrition. So all these things are connected.
They all play a role. So that's why we want to support these things simultaneously to get the best results. And so then for this individual, not really surprised, as we're looking at thyroid and we're looking at liver, that then hormones came up as the system that needs the most support. And for this individual on the physical side, the areas that are contributing to low hormone numbers the most are parathyroid, which actually has nothing to do with the thyroid, you guys. It controls the flow of calcium in the body. It's very different. The pineal gland sits in the center of the head, involved in a lot of important brain function, and the uterus, a lot of hormones there too. So for this individual, they would click on the learning resource and it would take them to a video on how they can start addressing hormones today. And really what are hormones? And that resource will teach you that hormones are just signalers. They help to give the information of the instruction being carried out by that part of the body. And then immune system also came up as needing support in the breast, the liver, and lymphatic. And your lymph is part of your immune system. Lymphatic refers most often to the fluid that carries waste out of the body. And the breasts are lymphatic tissue. So they're also involved. These are all involved in detox. So all this stuff is involved in removing toxicity from the body. And that's why her immune system came up, is because there's too many toxins mucking up the immune system and it can't perform its job as well.
Right.
And because liver's partially involved, that's also affecting her circulation and her hormones, which is affecting nutrition, which is affecting thyroid.
And, Dr. Michelle mentioned the liver and the castor oil packs. You can also put those on the breast area. And then lymphatic. Dry brushing is a great way to move your lymphatic system, and warm to hot water is another great way to move your lymphatic system.
And many of these suggestions are in this learning resource.
Yeah.
So then the Masters of Function secondary priorities are really just for all you big nerds out there.
It's free to kind of geek
just
out.
Want the extra information.
And we thought it'd be helpful that if you were doing multiple reports throughout the year or whatever, then you could also kind of compare and contrast how things move, from time to time, right? So if you're wanting to do your own 30-day challenge and do pre-post testing, or look at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, you can kind of see all the moving parts to these next 8 systems listed.
So these are all the systems that we're measuring in addition to your 2 top priorities: circulation, the central nervous system, digestive system, lymphatics, musculoskeletal, hair, skin, and nails, respiratory, and then your overall pH.
So on this last page, we list alphabetically all the major organs in your body, right? And as the female report, you'll see that it's going to say breast, ovaries, and uterus. For men, it's going to have prostate and testicles. So we highlighted again in yellow the dynamic parts. So you'll again see acute or chronic. You'll see the percentage here. It's different. Instead of it breaking it down into a physical and emotional bar graph, we essentially take those 2 scores, combine them, divide by 2, and then we get this overall health score.
So these are your overall average scores.
But then what we did is we also put in whether or not it's physical or emotional, so that you can see what is the predominant factor within the scope of your total health score, right? And that percentage.
And that just allows you to kind of know where to look. So for example, for this individual, liver came up as being more on the emotional side. And I've actually worked with an individual who was trying to improve their liver for 2 years and nothing improved her liver numbers. So I said, you know what, let's just try something different, because I had a feeling that it was probably more on the emotional side. And then after we did her voice test, it was confirmed that it was. So I said, let's just do something a little different. Do you pray? Yes, I pray every day. Okay, great. Hold your hands over your liver and say a prayer of love for your liver every day. She did it every day for 2 weeks and her liver completely normalized.
This concept can be applied to any of these organs.
Yes. You can do that for any organ that comes up emotional.
And so the other thing that you might see on your report is that it could also say significant emotional or significant physical, or it can also say strong.
Mhm.
Significant is the next layer of essentially significance, right? So imagine that you have minimal, moderate, and severe. Minimal is you'll just see physical or emotional, or both.
Mhm.
Then when you get to the moderate level of like really needing to focus on that, organ, it's going to say significant. And then if it says strong, that means
That's
really,
severe.
that is severe, right? That
Yeah.
it really needs to pay attention to that aspect of physical or emotional within that organ.
And this individual did not have any significant or strong, which is great. It means a lot of her stuff is pretty equally balanced.
Now, if you want to geek out further, right, then at the end of the pay of this page, we list all of our different resources.
Ta-da!
We have about 30 plus resources. We're constantly building more. I would say in no time, we're going to be having 50, 60. We're going to be building out a lot of content in the near future. So definitely you want to, I would say, go back to the report every now and then, even if you only do this once, let's just say once a year, even though we recommend doing it probably once a month. If you're not doing appointments with us, doing it once a month is a great way to kind of maneuver and move through different things that need focus and attention.
Mhm.
But if nothing else, if you want to just do this once, I would keep the report, because we're going to keep building onto this list.
And you can use the same link to see all the new resources
Yes.
that we add all the time.
Yes, we're never going to replace that link or with
Yeah.
a different thing. No, we're going to just be continuously adding new resources all the time. And that is going to conclude our recording.
Recorded part. Thanks for joining.